Dr. Mason West.
Hey y'all, what is up? Welcome to this episode of Bare Bones. As always, I am Mason West, but I can't do this game, this preview, Packers coming to town against the Bears without some help. So, I dug deep and I found two amazing guests. One that's a little more familiar. First off, Khari Thompson. Khari, how you doing today?
You know what, man? I'm doing well. It is good to be back on the show. It's been a little bit, but you know what? I've been working myself back into football shape. And it is nice to have, one of my, big appearances of the year be on this week, which is another one of the biggest Bears-Packers games in the last 20 or so years.
And like I said, I mean, for real dive into why this is so special, I don't think any Bears fan really doesn't know why, but this is such a special week that I had to get Nicholas Moreano on the show, right? I mean, he's one of the guys that helped bring me on to Chicago Audible back in the day, got me in the podcast game. So yeah, this seemed like the perfect week to bring him in. How you doing, Nick?
I'm doing great, you guys. The energy, I mean, the intro, I'm ready. Bears, Packers, week 16, NFC North's on the line. Like, this is what it's all about, playing meaningful games in December. Like, I mean, you said the last 20 years there, Khari. Like, I can't remember, like, the last time this time of the year football's actually meant something for the Bears. But this is a pivotal stretch for Chicago as they look to make a playoff push.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, obviously there's been playoff hopes in the last 20 years. You had the fake one with Mitch and the Nickelodeon Bowl with the Saints, and then you had the hype that was 2018. I mean, obviously that felt very real, but came crashing down on a sound I will just not mention because I refuse to do so. Every fail video on YouTube has that on there. We all know what we're talking about. But, this just has a bit of a different vibe to it, even if it's still not locked in. So I think, as a part of our chart review this week, we're going to talk a little bit about the playoff pole positioning that is going on right now. The Bears can clinch a playoff spot this week with a win over the Packers, but they would also need the Lions to lose to the Steelers. If you look further out, the Bears can actually clinch the NFC North, which is crazy to say out loud, with a win versus the Packers, and then also a win against either the 49ers or Lions coming up. Of course, there's also a path to the 1 seed, crazy enough, but that's a whole other thing that we're not going to dive into. Nick, I'm going to kick this to you first. What are you thinking about the fact that, again, the Bears could literally this week clinch a playoff spot, particularly against a team in the Packers?
It's a little surreal, and I just think back to how this season started. 0-2, you lose the division games back to back, but I think this team has showed a lot of perseverance through all of the injuries they've had on offense, defense, but to find themselves in this position, I think it's just a credit to the coaching staff. To regardless if it's a guy like DeMarco Jackson winning NFC Defensive Player of the Week, or other guys like Josh Blackwell stepping up at certain times throughout the season, you're really looking to the entire depth of this roster to help you get to this point. And that's what the Bears have done. They've put themselves in a position to, like you said, clinch the NFC North, potentially fight to get the number one seed in the NFC. And that, I think, again, is a credit to Ben Johnson, the culture they've established, but also the players themselves making enough plays when they had to, especially in those tight, close games. And they're here right now, Saturday game, where it's going to mean everything to the Bears and Packers.
Khari, I mean, the Bears started 0-2. There was games where they won with blocked field goals, games where they gave up leads, games where most of the time, especially if you were maybe chilling in a certain Bears chat that tends to melt down during games, you thought all was lost multiple times in this season. What does it feel like to be sitting here with, I mean, I projected them to have 10 wins in the whole year, right? When I went earlier this season, the fact that they could string together a couple more here, pretty nuts, right?
I said to myself, after a number of years of being overly optimistic, that, get to 7 wins and then I'll pay attention. And that, or you're not that I'll pay attention. I was watching every game, but then I will really have some optimism. And then at one point you look up and they're 7-3 and you're like, okay, I guess we're doing this. I think with this team in particular, I think it's very palpable how mentally tough they are. It easily could have gotten off the rails after those first 2 losses. And I understood the skepticism of looking at them constantly coming back at the end of games against teams that they honestly ought to have been beating by more. But then you look at how they performed against the better teams, including the Packers that lost a couple of weeks ago. Look, in the end, Bill Parcells had a great quote, which is that your record, you are what your record says you are. And you can say unequivocally that this Bears team is good. And I think that having this tougher back end of the schedule has proven that they are good. They have been playing, with the exception of the Cleveland Browns, actual playoff teams. And they have been winning or competitive down to the last play. So I think that is, you couldn't ask for much more as a Bears fan, I think in a very basic sense, after what we've been through the last couple of years. But now, as Nick mentioned, look, you've got something to play for. That means it's time to step up. I mean, great. You've outplayed your expectations, but now you're in the thick of it. Now it's time for you to make good.
So far, early returns. Ben Johnson is delivering. These players are delivering. Caleb is delivering in particular. He's really stepped up his game. One thing that doesn't seem to be delivering is this Bears stadium. We have to talk about this, unfortunately. We don't spend a lot of time here, but in an open letter to fans, Bears president and CEO Kevin Warren wrote about a new stadium. In addition to Arlington Park, we need to expand our search and critically evaluate opportunities throughout the wider Chicagoland region, including Northwest Indiana. Now, obviously, I believe this is some posturing to an extent, but I mean, you gotta spend money to make money. You gotta play ball, and right now it doesn't seem like the two sides are really playing ball to make a stadium happen in the Chicagoland area.
Yeah, no, it's been. I feel like this has just been an ongoing process with this stadium. Every time, honestly, that I hear stadium news, I almost turn the other way because it's like I know where this is going. Absolutely nowhere. And it always, guys, it's always been happening too at like these big moments in Bears season. I remember there was like news right before, like even going back to last year, like London, week 1, all these things, but it's strategic right now during the national broadcast they're going to have where all these eyes are going to be on Bears Packers. I'm willing to bet that the Bears stadium gets mentioned multiple times throughout the broadcast, right? So it's all strategic in how they're doing these things. But if you're someone who's trying to be optimistic about if this new stadium is going to get done, there's supposed to be shovels in the ground in 2025. We are close to that 2025 being over, and there is not going to be any shovels in the ground anytime soon. So yeah, it's just been kind of like an eyesore, to be completely honest. Like when I saw the news, I was writing something on Bears Packers. Guess what I did? I continued writing my Bears Packers article and just kind of looked the other way.
Yeah, and you know what? I think we've kind of made the point about the posturing with this. I want to say this. Listen, Chicago Bears, if anybody from the Chicago Bears is listening to this, I am offering my services as a communications specialist so that I can help you avoid PR issues like this. Okay, that's, I've been a media professional for a very long time and working as a producer. I can help you with this. Just hit me up. You have your people call my people. I think the other thing that's interesting about it is you're throwing in Northwest Indiana. My immediate thought is I'm actually a Northwest Indiana resident, or rather originator, I should say, a native. So I grew up in Hobart, Indiana. Don't put the stadium there. There's really no reason for that. But I'm thinking to myself, like, where would you even put that, right? It's got to be one. It's most likely got to be one of the places that is off the South Shore line so that people can hop on that and take it down there. I used to take the South Shore line from South Bend even all the way up to Chicago back in the day. And that runs through Hammond, Gary, East Chicago, and all that. So like my thought is like, okay, I understand from the standpoint of like, yeah, your property taxes are going to be way lower. I'm sure they would love to have you there. You'd pay less than you would pay at Arlington Heights and Chicago, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm just thinking to myself, like, what is the point? Like I'm out here in Boston currently where the New England Patriots play in Foxborough, which is at best a half-hour drive from Boston itself. And look, people make that drive all the time. The traffic is terrible. I wouldn't recommend it. But you can do it, right? And obviously you have the New York teams not playing in New York City proper. Teams do this. But the Chicago Bears are a Chicago brand, right? It's like it's at least got to be in Illinois. You know what I'm saying? So I
Yeah, and
don't
definitely
see
to
the
what you
point.
said, like like you said, both New York teams, they don't play in New York. The San Francisco 49ers play 40 miles away from San Francisco. So there's, precedent for this. But at the end of the day, timing is everything. Right now, Chicago, as the Illinois as a whole, right? They're not willing to put up the money. You can have a Pritzker conversation if you want to. We ain't gonna get political on the show, but unless Illinois puts up some of the funding, and not even just for the stadium, but for the infrastructure changes that need to happen. That's one of the biggest things. But then you have to potentially look elsewhere. The Bears don't want to play in Indiana. Almost every major stadium in America is built with some degree of public and private partnership. You're going to have to do that for this one. And really, you think about it, the Bears have been frustrated by stadium negotiations forever. This goes way, way back. And it's just always been this contentious thing instead of a partnership. So, like we started this off with, do I think that's anyone's ultimate goal is to have the Bears play in Indiana? No. But if Indiana rolls out the red carpet, is willing to clear out some buildings and willing to put up the land and help out and all that jazz, and they're willing to do it sooner rather than later. Because if this was happening 5 years from now, I think it'd be a different conversation just in terms of where things would be sitting at. But the Bears are sitting on $200 million of land that they spent and want to use. I don't think they're willing to wait that long. So, obviously you got to wait and see. Like Nick said, this is not happenstance that they're talking about this, a couple days before one of the biggest Bears games in recent history, just because in terms of what's going on. And it's going to be a talking point. And obviously the Bears are hoping that this creates a little more movement, because there just really hasn't been.
Yeah, no. And I would say too, I wouldn't completely dismiss Northwest, there's no way. I wouldn't view it that way because of how there hasn't been any major progress that we can see from the outside looking in. But yeah, I think too, it's strategic how this was done. And, I think now moving back to more important things, this Bears Packers game. That's what I think. Again, that's what I've seen a lot of overreact or people kind of reacting to this news, but then eventually they come back. Oh, wait, the Bears play the Packers on Saturday for the NFC North. That's what I want to talk about.
Yes, and let's talk about that, because the Chicago Bears in Northwest Indiana, they're like that job offer that you got that it seems fun. You don't really want to take it, but you're like, oh, I'll hear your offer. Let's see what you want to do. And then you're going to stick with who you got. So let's get to the Bears and Packers.
Which we will do that right now. We're going to talk about the injury report, what's going on there. Unfortunately, at first, I thought we would be doing the show kind of lauding over all the Packers injury news, but unfortunately, we have to start with some Bears stuff. Officially out, right? Luther Burden, Rome Odunze, Amin Ogbonniga. I always will butcher your name. I apologize so much. But you're down your it depends on how you want to look at this 2-3 receiver, at least one of your more productive receivers recently in Luther Burden. So Khari, I'm going to go to you first on this one. What does that mean to you being down both of those receivers?
You could deal with just Rome being down because Burden was starting to ascend. You wanted to see what you had. You got him the ball. He led the Bears in receiving in this last game, 6 catches for 84 yards, looked really good. I do not at all like the idea of both Rome and Luther being out for this game. And again, it wasn't that the Bears lit things up from a passing perspective against the Packers last time. It's just that now you're getting down into that depth chart where you do still have DJ Moore, and Colston Loveland is your most important pass catcher on the team at this point, in my opinion. So you do still have that. At the same time, I feel like it starts to limit the threat of the personnel groups that you have. You can play 11, but 2 of your receivers are going to be Olamide Zaccheaus and Jade Walker. And at that point, you're thinking okay, how much am I really concerned about this? I wonder how much it will change what Ben Johnson does from a personnel standpoint, especially if they're thinking to themselves, I might want to run the ball more than throw it.
Well, and so, yeah, Nick, I'll shoot this to you now. We think hearing what Khari just said, I would agree. And if there's someone that's I would hope to get you out of a little bit of a jam with the personnel, it'd be a Ben Johnson's of the world. But you do see a distinct difference. You saw that earlier in the season when, Olamide Zaccheaus was getting more of those snaps, started shifting more to Burden, got more explosive. But then you still were seeing every once in a while why Zaccheaus kind of lost some of those snaps with, the lack of separation he can create and some of the route running, things of that nature. So where's your head at with this?
Yeah, it's definitely not the place you want to be going into such a pivotal game. But, when you do look at this Bears roster, you still Kyrie mentioned, Luther. I mean, you don't have Luther Burden, but you have a guy in Colston Loveland that is a glorified. He can run routes like a wide receiver, but blocks like he's a traditional wide tight end. So that's a versatile piece that I think you can utilize. I think it does help too, knowing that the Green Bay Packers do not have Micah Parsons. So what the Bears were doing, having their tight end stay and chip, you can now ask Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet to be more of those pass catching targets. I think in this one until maybe a Rashawn Gary proves you otherwise that you need to have guys to chip. So you're just going to find these pass catching options in different ways if you're Ben Johnson. And like you said, Mason, if there's one guy that I want in this specific position, you never want to be in this position, but if you are in this one, it's a guy like Ben Johnson who could be creative, get his backs maybe more involved in the pass game if you have to. Well, however you need to do it, I think Ben, knowing that this is the circumstances that he's in going into this game, is going to find ways to strategically attack this Packers defense that doesn't have their number one pass rusher. So again, not an ideal position, but it's not the worst place to be if you're Ben Johnson because of how creative he can be offensively.
And quickly from that, the fact that Cole Kmet practiced in full is really encouraging, because when he got hit, that looked like he's not going to be able to play next week. That might be a multi-week injury. The fact that he was able to practice in full suggests to me that most likely, I mean, Mason might have thoughts on this, like I would think he's probably going to play, and that helps you from a depth perspective. And maybe it says, look, we're going to go more 12 this time around, and maybe we'll split Colston out and use him more as a wide receiver. Because I felt like if you were down Cole Kmet, then you've got real problems.
Yeah, I believe I saw Adam Hogue tweeted today that he talked to Cole, and Cole said like he is playing in this game. So I fortunately, because people sometimes I don't think really understand how important Cole is to this team, from what he's doing in the run game and what he's doing as a leader. But I was worried a bit there when I first saw that. I thought it might have been a high ankle sprain, but I mean, Cole is a dang Iron Man, and the fact that he pushes through what he does is so impressive. One thing Nick had mentioned is getting your running backs more involved, and DeAndre Swift popped up on the injury report yesterday. I always get a little worried when I see someone has a limited participant after they were full, because that means they missed part of practice all of a sudden. But you did see today he was also limited, which you feel a little bit better about. Right. At least I do. The thing that sucks is it's the groin that's been bothering him pretty much all year, it seems like. So there's nothing here for sure to say whether he will or won't play. But in terms of how that was trending, I believe he should be playing. If he was a DMP, obviously that would be much more worrisome. But someone else who went from limited to full is Tremaine Edmonds. So now all of a sudden you're getting, I think DeAndre Swift should be playing. The fact you have Manungai playing as well as he is too. You have a little more of a snap count for Swift. That's fantastic. But you also get Tremaine Edmonds back. That should help you, especially in the intermediate of and that defense, and where Love wants to be able to throw that ball, especially. And we can talk about this later in the show, but the whole man-to-man versus zone concept, which I think is a whole conversation to have. But other than that, I mean, the Bears are pretty much intact, which is good.
Yeah, no, it's a good side. And if they get Tremaine Edmonds back for this Saturday's game, which I think it's definitely leaning towards that happening.
Yep.
I mean, you're getting a guy that was playing some really good football before he went out of that game against the Minnesota Vikings, had 4 interceptions. And Ben was talking about it today in his press conference, just a tough person to throw over. And we've heard that all along with Tremaine Edmonds. But I really feel like that his length was more of a factor this season than it had been in previous seasons, just because of now playing that will linebacker. I think it's just put him in position to make more plays on the ball. So you get him back. You already have TJ Edwards back, and DeMarco Jackson's been more than serviceable at the other linebacker position. You feel a lot better there against a Packers offense that just utilizes so many different weapons, and you just don't know who it's going to end up going to. And Jordan Love, like I've been saying this all week, he's probably going to get his in this game. Like he is, I think it's all right to say that Jordan Love is good at the quarterback position. I know some Bears fans are a little hesitant to say that, but
he is.
He's accurate, man. He throws off that back foot, and you're just waiting for it to be intercepted. But more times than not, it just kind of lands where it needs to go. So I give him credit for that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I mean, to your point, one thing with DeMarco Jackson, top graded linebacker in the league for week 15. I mean, and it's honestly mind-boggling to me to think about that. That was his first career sack and first career interception. And he's only started 4 games in his career, and look how well that they've got him playing. But to the Jordan Love point, I feel like we don't appreciate enough how well he's played against the Chicago Bears in his career. He is averaging almost 70%, almost exactly 70% completions. And he has, like almost 2 touchdowns a game. He's only thrown 2 picks against them, with a rating on average of 121. I mean, he does not have problems against the Chicago Bears, except for that one game where he got hurt early in week 18 last year. So look, it is difficult to make life hard for him. And it just seems like he knows where to go and what to do. And I think in this last game, we saw him use his legs more than he usually does. And when he does that, I mean, it's even more multidimensional. So I feel like we do need to respect what Jordan Love is doing at the position. This is not going to be an easy game.
Moving over to the Packers real quick to wrap up this segment here. There's a couple major injuries that Nick already brought up. Micah Parsons, that's the biggest one. In my opinion, that shifts you from a Super Bowl true contender to a, hey, you're just a playoff contender and we'll see what happens kind of thing. But a couple other names that we just want to be wary of. Kingsley Enagbare, right? He made that really big 3rd and 1 stop on the Bears' final drive. His is an illness, so we got to kind of keep an eye on that. 2 days might be enough to get back, but he didn't participate today. Josh Jacobs is probably one of the bigger names that is a big question mark. I mean, between him and so he didn't participate at all with that knee issue he has. At least Christian Watson, he's been limited the last couple of days, but I think both of them are going to be just probably playing, to be honest, but loaded up with every painkiller you can see that you can think of. Zach Tom, one of their starting guard, he has not participated. I actually think he won't play. And then in terms of the other name, I think Evan Williams, same thing. He's has not participated. Safety with a bit of a knee issue. I don't think he's playing, which is pretty massive. And then so going back really quick to Christian Watson, with that SC joint sprain that he has.
Sternocleidomastoid.
I said almost the wrong thing. With the sternocostal joint sprain. It seems like he's going to be playing, but man, I mean, between catch radius issues, between just like pain issues, and I mean, blocking, being jammed to the line, he's not going to be himself in this game, and that is something that we can't reduce. So I mean, Khari, if you're sitting there and you're thinking, I mean, there's a bunch of other issues like injuries of guys who are INR, that I haven't even brought up, but with that, the Micah conversation, Lucas Van Ness may not play again, all this. What are you thinking on the defensive side when they're taking on the Bears offense? How is that going to impact them?
Well, I think that the first thing is, I mean, they used a ton of play action and a ton of boot to neutralize Parsons. Maybe you use play action just because Caleb Williams is comfortable with it and he's so efficient at it. He's one of the best play action passers in the league. But I think you don't need to boot as much because you're not worried about running away from Micah Parsons. And again, as Nick mentioned, maybe Rashawn Gary, maybe this Packers defensive front, or maybe Jeff Hafley comes up with something that makes it necessary. But I think you probably go back to a little bit more. We're going to go downhill more straight at you this time around, and we're not going to worry about the misdirection as much. And again, they found a lot of success in the second half of that game in the run game, just running it between the tackles, just getting right into them. And I feel like if Swift is able to play, you stick with that. And even if he's not, well, that's where Kyle Monangai specializes. Just run right at him and run through your face. So I think the Packers defense does not frighten me nearly as much as it did. And I think on the other side of things, when you look at Christian Watson, you got to jam him. You got to get up on him and you got to put your hands on him. Because here's the thing, those legs will work. So
yeah.
I mean, so if he catches the ball, you still got to get him down and you got to make sure he's not running away from you. But you make him feel that discomfort every single time you can. Get hands on him.
So Nick, looking at that Packers offense, what are your expectations with specifically how it relates to, Christian Watson being limited, the question mark whether or not, I think he's probably going to play, for being honest, but like very hampered, but the limitations of Josh Jacobs. We saw that. I mean, their running back room is just Marshawn Lloyd got brought back, just this procedural thing. He's going to end up getting shoved back on IR and all that jazz. But are you worried about the Packers offense as much as you were, or are they going to be missing some teeth?
I think they're going to be missing some teeth, but like I said earlier, I expect Jordan Love to be accurate, to get the ball out on time, to get his playmakers involved. Like those outbreaking routes, when I was just even watching the game that the Packers had last week against the Denver Broncos, that first half, Jordan Love looked good. They didn't, I think it was 14. It was a close game at the end of the first half. And then they score on their first opening possession in the third quarter. But Jordan Love was putting the ball exactly where it needed to be. He was getting outside the pocket, using his legs, like Khari mentioned earlier. So I expect them to do that. What I do expect, though, from the Bears defense this time around, some of those coverage busts that happen with the explosive plays that I think involve Jalen Johnson not kind of drifting back to cover a vacated zone when they went into single high, like some of those things that happen, I don't think that's going to be an issue now with Jalen Johnson having now 2 games under his belt, and 3 total if you include the Philadelphia game, where he's just more in sync with what Dennis Allen is expecting of him. So if you're getting a better version of Jalen Johnson, who had an insane pick in the Cleveland Browns game, when I was in press box, you guys, I had no idea what just happened. Like completely had no idea how that ball got into his hands, but it did. And that's Jalen Johnson for you, who can make those spectacular plays. So I expect some of those explosives that happened in that first matchup between the Bears and Packers not to happen because of the coverage bust. If it's just, a nice delivered ball to a tight window, look, a perfect throw will beat a perfect defense.
Yeah.
And if that happens, it happens. But I do expect, like I said, Jordan Love to have some yards, to put up some points, to get the Packers offense going. But those takeaways, like the Bears have generated them almost consistently in all these games. CJ Gardner-Johnson getting one last time he played Jordan Love. So I have a feeling that Dennis Allen, if they can limit the yardage the Packers get on first and second down, that's going to be a huge emphasis, you guys, to going into this game. Those third and long situations, that's where Dennis likes to get creative. I know one of the times he brought the blitz and that slant route against CJ Gardner-Johnson goes for a touchdown, but that's what Dennis does. And I think he's going to be more willing to do that even in this game, just to see if he can get Jordan Love off his mark, because that is a tough thing to do.
Yeah, and I think, again, that's where it becomes, if you're going to play man-to-man, no free releases.
Yeah.
Get on them. Because, again, if you make Jordan Love move, he generally becomes less efficient. Because if you let him sit in the pocket, he'll get you.
Yep.
All right. We're going to take a quick break and then move on to looking at this game just a little closer. Kombucha is a premium performance-focused kombucha crafted specifically for athletes and active individuals. This revitalizing beverage blends the traditional benefits of kombucha with nutritional enhancements to support energy, hydration, and recovery. Made from organic teas and infused with natural electrolytes, kombucha offers a delicious and effective solution to maintain peak performance. Better athletic performance, increased nutrient absorption, improved wellness, and improved cognitive stamina. Use code BEARGUTCHECK for 50% off your order. All right. Next, we are in our knee jerk reaction. This is one hot take we got going into next week. Khari, why don't you lead us off?
Jordan Love's going to throw another pick. And I mean, that might not seem like the most outlandish thing to say, but Jordan Love does not throw a lot of interceptions. He does not turn the ball over very often. We have seen him now in these last couple of contests, or 2 of the 3 last contests of the Bears, throw pretty egregious interceptions where it seemed like it was just a miscommunication. He was throwing the ball to a spot. I think they're going to get him again. And this time, I think the Bears are going to win because of it.
Ooh. All right. That's a pretty hot take. Already throwing out that one a little early in the show. I like it. Nick, what do you got?
Yeah, so like we were talking earlier, the Bears weren't able to get much pressure on Jordan Love. I'm looking at a guy with Zach Tom, the right tackle, being questionable with his injury. I'm looking at Montez Sweat, man. I know he got him once in that first matchup. Let's go get the 2-sack performance from Montez Sweat in this game and really just get Jordan Love off his mark. If you can do that, like Khari was talking about, less likely that he's going to make some of those passes that he's been making all season. So 2-sack performance for Montez Sweat there.
That would be music to my ears, just knowing how terrible his pass rush has really been. Mine was honestly revolving around Luther Burden, and so now I'm not doing it and I'm just sad. So I'm going to flip it to a different rookie where everyone's alluded to this to an extent, but with Luther Burden, out, with Roma Dunze out, there's just certain route concepts that is just integral right now to this system, to Ben Johnson, what Caleb likes to do. And a lot of that can be and should be run by Colson Loveland. And I mean, he's got arguably, I would say, the most natural hands on the team. He usually is a hand catcher. He doesn't fight the ball, not catching it with the body. And so it's just, he's a matchup nightmare. And so when you're down to, and no offense to DJ, I've been very vocal about my issues with some of how he runs his routes, a little bit of some effort stuff, but he also can only run certain types of routes. And that's just, they're not ones you can really sustain. Like if you look at some of his bigger games, even in the past, I'm thinking about that Commanders game with Justin Field. And a lot of that was deep balls, right? Touchdown or nothing kind of stuff. We saw that even a little bit last week.
Or like hitches and you break a tackle.
Right. And, four catches and 2 touchdowns, which is great. But, the down to down between the 20, just moving the chains, that's got to be Colson Loveland this week. So I think he's going to have a pretty monster game. And then we get to point to all the Colts fans who said, haha, you took the wrong tight end, and say, like, did we though? Did we though? To be perfectly honest, something brutally honest, I'll just go right into this one, just because we talked about this a little bit earlier. Even with Edwards and Edmonds back, I think DeMarco Jackson has earned a role in this defense. Since week 12 of the 2025 season, he's put together the following stats: 30 total tackles, 12 solo, 18 assisted, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, and an interception. Specifically, I mean, that was a very headsy, athletic interception he made too. Like, it wasn't one that just fell on his lap. Yes, he had that missed tackle on Josh Jacobs last time they met with the Packers, which really led to that 21-yard gain and eventual touchdown. And he's not the perfect player or an all-star, but he consistently makes plays. I think he's earned the trust of the coaches. He had the green dot, clear leader in his own way on this defense. And so I just think you got to figure out ways to keep him on the field, which is tough because there's a lot of players that you want to be on the field at this point, between Tyreek Stevenson, between Jalen Johnson, you got CJ Gardner-Johnson. I mean, the list goes on. There's only so many people that can be on the field at a time, but that also gives you the ability to keep your players fresh in a game that is going to be important in that manner. Nick, what is your, to be perfectly honest?
I'm going to go with still sticking with the Christian Watson conversation. Like, it does concern me. I guess concern's the right word here. His speed, even though he's going to be banged up. Like, when you look at these Bears defensive backs, I wouldn't say speed is their strength, right? Even from Jalen Johnson, Deshaun Wright, Tyreek Stevenson, CJ Gardner, that's not their strength, right? So with a guy like Christian Watson, who can take a top off the defense, who can run away from man coverage if he's not pressed at the line of scrimmage, yeah, if there's an opportunity where the Packers can get something isolated one-on-one, get a yards after catch situation, have one of those DBs in position, it does concern me a little bit. So again, what Khari was saying earlier is so important. Like, these free releases, you need to make everything difficult. Just throw off the timing. And maybe that allows a pass rusher to get to Jordan Love a little bit quicker, or, a little bit sooner there. So that's something I'm going to be watching out for. Like, as I'm writing like my 5 players to watch, CJ Gardner-Johnson's one of them. And that kind of situation, man on man, and there's a whole bunch of open field in the middle, it does concern me. So I'm curious to see how Dennis Allen adjusts in this second matchup at Soldier Field.
Yeah, that's a valid point. Kyrie, what you got?
Because he was the one who got taken on the Christian Watson touchdown, and he got beat across the field by Jaden Reed at one point.
Yep.
And I was thinking to myself, look, even if Kyler Gordon was in the game, he's also not necessarily a speed merchant. So it's like those are things you got to work on regardless. It's like, if you're going to have a bunch of corners who are very headsy, and play physical, then you got to play physical all the time. I mean, I think that's an approach that I hope that's an adjustment that they make. For me, I think I really need, and I'm surprised I'm saying this, but I think I really need DeAndre Swift to play in this game. I would not have expected to say that earlier in the season when he was one of the least efficient running backs in the league. But the way that he has come on in recent weeks, where he's just whatever Ben Johnson is cooking up is working for him. He's running downhill. He's breaking tackles. He's been more or less what they signed him to be. Again, I'm not worried from the standpoint that I think, Kyle Monangai is perfectly capable. But then if you're going to give Monangai the lion's share of the carries, then, what are you getting from the backups, right? Is it going to be like Britton Brown and Travis Homer getting carries? It's a big drop off from going from DeAndre Swift to Kyle Monangai. So I think that just generally Swift's play recently has been a big boost for this offense. And I think that it would be a loss on a similar level of not having Luther Burden if he cannot play.
No, you're absolutely right. And as someone who last year consistently kept pulling up the stat of, expected yards and how he was bottom of the league over the entire season, you're absolutely right. I mean, I've had to eat crow a bit this year and admit, it does help when you have a better offensive line. It helps when you have the right head coach. It helps when you have the right running backs coach. I think Eric Bieniemy has done a good job of trying to get him running the right direction, not always running to the sideline. But I mean, he's had a big change this year. So not having him would be a big difference. Khari, why don't you keep going for our next one? Length is humorous. What's something a little funny or quirky about this?
What is funny about this? I think that the conversation around the Caleb Williams play from last week, the touchdown pass to DJ Moore has been pretty hilarious to me, as well as just generally his response to it, which is no less than what you would expect. I mean, yes, he's going to make throws that are going to make traditionalists be like, no, that's a terrible decision. But he can do that. Is that not why he was drafted by the Chicago Bears? Not just because, his arm talent or whatever, we just need a top quarterback, but because he can do that, right? And he does that, and all of a sudden everybody's like, well, that was a terrible decision. Why would you even do that? It's like, that's the whole point. And the fact that Caleb Williams is like, no, nothing's off the table for me. I can make any throw. That is, people have their opinions on what Caleb Williams is as a player or as a person, but that is exactly the kind of arrogance I want out of my quarterback. I can make any throw. And the thing is, Caleb Williams is not just saying that. He can make every throw. And so I do think that it's funny. Now that the Chicago Bears have a guy that can do that, everybody is like, basically like, wait, you're not supposed to do that. You're a Chicago Bears quarterback. But if somebody else does it, if Patrick Mahomes or Matthew Stafford does it, then it's like, oh, wow, look at that throw. But it's because it's a Chicago Bears quarterback and because he paints his nails.
Yeah, Nick, that's a good point. Yeah, there's been the crazy discussion about Caleb. I don't know how I ventured onto the podcast that LaShawn McCoy is on.
Oh, dangerous. Yeah,
getting off of that. But you know what I think is also funny too between these two fan bases is how they approach, I think, individual Twitter X accounts that say, oh, Micah Parsons, like they're advocating for the Micah Parsons injury and celebrating it. Like that does not represent an entire fan base. No fan wants to see like respective players get injured, go out for the entire season. So one stupid, idiotic kind of comment does not represent an entire fan base, but it goes both ways. Like I've seen Bears fans do that with, Micah Parsons. I've seen Packers fans do that with, Kyler Gordon going down and things like that. But it's kind of funny to see these kind of comments just continue to circulate, especially now with the magnitude of this game. But I think I always feel like there should be more rationale when it comes to social media, but then I always get reminded that's not a place for common sense sometimes. So I always get, I always laugh a little internally when I see some of those discussions happening.
Yeah, social media is not for rational people. And also they don't call them fans for nothing. It's short for fanatics. A lot of sports fans are weirdos.
Very true.
My Inc is humorous. Rashawn Gary has 0 sacks and 0 TFLs in the last 7 games. That is the longest streak since his rookie season, 9 games, when he was a rotational backup behind the Smith brothers. And that's with defenses focusing on Micah Parsons. Now, all of a sudden, could he figure it out this game in particular, a little more motivation, especially because there has been some whispers about this as a topic? Yes, but now he's one of, if not the primary threat on this Packers defensive line. What's that going to look like when the chips and the double teams and all that are coming at you? So, I just think it's for a guy that, Packers fans have touted pretty highly, and who is supposed to be the dude, or at least a dude. And if we're being honest, is he?
He better stay away from Darnell Wright. That's all I'm saying. You better go to the other side and try to deal with that.
I just love this. I mean, this Bears offensive line, just the physicality they play with. Like talking to Jonah Jackson this week, I think that dude just lives and breathes trying to not hurt people, but just bury people when he gets the opportunity to. Like that, like I told him like a Red Hulk, that's what Caleb called you. He's like, I wanted to be Thanos. And I'm like, dude, I could see that. I could see like just how you kind of approach yourself. But yeah, this Bears offensive line I know is going to be ready. I'm curious to see what this Packers defensive line is like without Micah Parsons.
Yeah, I think that, when it comes to football, man, I think there's this mentality. You don't want to injure people, but you kind of do want to hurt them. You do want to break their will a little bit. You know what I mean? And I feel like absolutely, if they get a chance to line somebody up and take them out, I mean, obviously, like not in a dirty way, but yes. That's why you keep pancakes as a stat. You know what I mean? You're trying to put them on the ground.
All right, another quick break here, and then we'll be back with this last half of the show. All right, what you need to know. This is just going to be a couple questions this time that I'm going to throw. I'll throw one at Khari, throw one at Nick, and we're just going to do 2 questions each. Simple as that. Nick, I'll start with you for this. Which wide receiver not named Christian Watson makes the most plays for the Packers come Saturday?
I'm going to go with Romeo Doubs. He's their leading receiver right now. And I think if it's not Christian Watson, he's definitely somebody that Jordan Love will look to throughout this game. Like I said, they use everybody there, but Romeo Doubs.
All right. Khari, how do you view Ozzie Trapillo? Concerned, happy, somewhere in between? He's had a really tough matchup last week, and it wasn't exactly like he heavily showed. But again, like he definitely had a couple missed reps, but it's also Myles Garrett.
Yes, it's Myles Garrett. I think all things considered, probably happy. Somewhere in the middle to happy. Look, the guy's a rookie, right? And you can't necessarily expect rookies to go out there and dominate. I would say that he has largely held his own, and I think you feel good about that, especially for a rookie who wasn't playing for most of the year. He's thrown in the thick of things against the good teams, I would point out, against the better part of the schedule, and he has not been an abject weakness, including against Myles Garrett, who honestly is he's gonna get everybody. He got Trent Williams. I mean, come on.
Nick, are you concerned at all about Cairo Santos? Another way to put it, is there an instance where you're saying, even the weather is pretty good, we're not going to kick that, we're going to go for it on 4th down?
This is so funny that you asked me this, because I was thinking about this morning, like at 7 a.m. I have no idea why, but I'm not on that level of like, Cody Parkey or anything like that. It's not like when he was from 30 to 35 yards, he was 8 of 8 before Sunday's game against the Browns. And it happened. Richard Hightower said it was inexcusable. Doesn't matter what the weather. So I'm not at like panic or, again, Cody Parkey level. But I think every time we're seeing Cairo line up for a field goal, you're kind of just like on the edge of your seat, like, okay, where's this field goal about to go? But I think he will use these last 3 regular season games to hopefully get on track. But it is something to monitor, no doubt about it.
Well, at the end of the day, right, you're also hoping Bears can have a high enough seed that you have home field advantage in the playoffs, and it's not exactly easy to kick at Soldier Field, as we've seen. Yep. So something to circle there. All right, last question for you, Khari. So we saw Ben Johnson, right, go into halftime of that Packers-Bears game, come out, and it was a very different experience on both sides of the ball, for being honest, but particularly on the offensive side. How do you expect the Packers now to react and how to in this chess game, and what do you think they're going to be doing to try to contain, one would assume, the Bears' run game, since that's really what got the offense going in that second half?
If I were the Packers, I'm going single high, and I'm dropping a guy into the box, and I'm saying, okay, you're going to run the ball. I'm going to stop you. Also, because I know that you're missing a bunch of your receivers. So I don't know that I believe that any of your guys are going to separate from me, except for maybe the tight end. So I think the Packers are going to drop down and be like, okay, you want to run the ball? Run it right into an 8-man box every time. Now, I think that's where you get creative and you try to move guys around, try to bunch them up to get them some free releases, and you do whatever you can do to punish man coverage. Because look, we know Caleb Williams can throw the ball. They know Caleb Williams can throw the ball. That's not the issue. The issue is going to be, do they think that the Bears receivers can get away from them? And I also think the other part of this is, without Micah Parsons, do they believe they can get home with 4 guys consistently? I wonder if Jeff Hafley is going to say to himself, like, look, we might have to bring a little bit more pressure and mix things up and get weird. So I think that they are going to look at what the Bears are doing straight up. So yeah, they'll go ahead and do like single high, but I think they're going to see if the Bears are really committed to the bit with running the ball, and see what kind of personnel groups that they're rocking with. Are they going to go more with 12 or are they going to go with 11? They're going to try to spread it out. We'll see. But I think that it's both strength in knowing that, hey, y'all receivers are injured, but also I don't have my all-world pass rusher.
You know, we're going to go right into our love it, hate it, rehabilitate it. So we look at a matchup that we love for the Bears, one that we hate, and one that we're the coach we go to fix this week, because my love is the ground game versus the Packers defensive line. So that actually was a perfect blending here. You know, Micah was not exactly top level run defender, but his presence enhances all facets of that defense. We also know that the defensive line is down a couple guys in addition to Micah. The Bears had a rough go in the first half overall, but the ground game found its footing in the second half. The Bears lead the league in yards per carry before contact. I mean, that is an offensive line stat at 2.09, and rushing yards and slash touchdowns 123, and they're second in rushing yards overall with 2,126 yards on the year so far. And Nick said this earlier. I mean, this is if you met Joe Tooney on the street somewhere, like, you'd think is a teddy bear. Same thing with like Drew Dahlman. But like when in those, you know, the sacred lines that is the football field, there's a switch that flips for those guys. We know Jonah Jackson's a mauler. We know Darnell Wright is just a beast of a man. This just seems like one of those games that Ben Johnson looks at those guys, that Dan Rochar looks at those guys and says, we're going to impose our will on them. And I would expect them to step up. So that is my love. Nick, what is yours?
Look, I mean, it's hard to not continue off of that point, because I do love the Bears' ability to attack this Packers defense, especially without a guy like Micah Parsons. So I love the way that they're utilizing outside zone. I love the way, you know what? I love the way that these Bears running backs are finishing plays, because we talked about it with DeAndre Swift. I think that was one of the biggest question marks for him too, going into the season. Like, is this a guy that can actually run in between the tackles? I feel like the last couple of weeks, you're seeing him lower the shoulder, fight through the ankle tackles, like the 17-yard run he had against Cleveland. Stops on a dime, fights through a tackle, gets into the end zone. Like, that's stuff that you love to see. So the physicality, I think, has become the identity of this Bears team. And you're seeing it not only through the blocks from the offensive line, the chips that these tight ends are getting. You saw Colston Loveland put Myles Garrett right on the ground. Olamide Zaccheaus, being one of the smallest guys out there, he's blocking. So it's this physicality. I love seeing it throughout the entirety of the offense.
Khari, what you got?
I love me some Colston Loveland in this game, because I like him against anybody the Packers might put on him, because he is that good. And I think this is going to be a game that Ben Johnson looks at him and says, listen, I know you're a rookie, and I know we're paying DJ Moore a lot of money, but you right now are basically the guy. You've proven it. Okay. In the second half of the season, he has proven himself, in my opinion, the best pass catcher that the Bears have. And I think that he has really fit into, as soon as they picked him, I could see it right away. He was supposed to be the Sam Laporta of this offense. And it took a little while for us to get there, but he's gotten there. So I think, look, if you're going to say you're going to man up and you're going to try and take away my wide receivers because you don't believe they're going to get open, who are you going to put on Colston Loveland? I want to see that. Have fun with that.
Yeah, if I'm not gonna lie, if we could have a couple catches and touchdowns from DJ Moore for my fantasy team, though, I would appreciate it. Why don't you keep going? What is your hate?
Man, I think I hate the slot receiver, or rather the slot corner situation. Because Nick mentioned, look, Romeo Dobbs is the leading receiver for the team. So if it's not Christian Watson, it'd be Romeo Dobbs. I'm looking at whether it's Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed, whatever it is, whoever is lining up on the inside, I don't like that matchup. And again, it's not because CJ Gardner-Johnson is not a good player. He has been a very useful player since coming to Chicago. He's been more than the antics and kind of all of that. He's been a solid player. He's contributed to the takeaway fest, but we've seen it. He can't run. Not with a fast slot guy or a fast receiver who is going to run across the field or run by. And that's just is what he is. That's fine. But I really don't like that. And I expect that they are going to go back and watch those two plays where Christian Watson catches the slant and runs away from him. And they're going to watch the Jaden Reed play where he catches, that in-breaking route along the sideline and runs straight away from CJ Gardner-Johnson. And I think they're going to say, how can we do that?
My hate's on the other side. Well, it's really about the Packers defense, where I'm worried about the corner blitz. That's something I really hope Ben Johnson and Rushar have figured out how to handle. You really saw that this has increased since that second Vikings game when Flores, it seemed like there was almost like an auto, call whenever that there was that tight alignment. Corner just rips off the edge, and it's messing with your run game. It's been messing with the pass game. And I mean, the tight split is something that is fairly important to how Ben Johnson likes to run this offense. So there has to be something in the pipeline to handle that, whether it's an audible, right, the line, something of that nature. And that's something that in general, I think has been a bit of a struggle that I haven't seen a lot on tape, is really the identification of, a defender and then placement of the ball where the defender has vacated. We haven't really seen potentially Caleb adjusting at the line. Hey, I'm going to hit you on this hot route kind of idea. So that whole thing is something that has been messing with the Bears for the last couple of weeks. And I hate the concept because it really has derailed them. Nick, what do you hate?
Look, I hate the Bears' ability to apply consistent pass rush, even against a injured Packers offensive line. So when I'm thinking about that matchup, whether it's Zach Tom or not for Montez Sweat, I know, like I said earlier, it would be great to see him get 2 sacks, but is that actually realistically going to happen? I don't know. Just because this Bears defensive line has been very inconsistent with getting some type of pass rush. And we've seen what happens when you give a guy, especially a guy like Jordan Love, some time. So even in this matchup at Soldier Field, where you're going to have the crowd behind you, things like that, I'm wondering how effective this defensive line, and Dennis Allen's going to bring his fair share of blitzes, how effective this pass rush is going to be on Saturday against Green Bay Packers. So that's something I do hate.
All right, ending with some optimism from all of us. Khari, what would you rehabilitate?
I think you come out of the gates firing with the run game, and you don't play around with trying to establish Caleb Williams. He will get there in time. I think that even if they drop 8 in the box, I don't care. I'm not sure that you can stop it. I want to see them come out into this game and say, like you said, we are going to impose our will. This is Chicago. This is Soldier Field. You are in our house, and we're going to beat you down. And then we're going to beat you down right away so that you can't stop it. Because I think that was one thing straight off the bat with that game. I was actually at a friend's house who's a Packers fan. His kid is friends with my kid. He's actually the only Packers fan in the world that I like. But I'm sitting there watching the first couple of drives, and I'm thinking to myself, man, first of all, the Bears, don't score, whatever. But I'm watching the Packers drive, and I'm like, they're waltzing down the field. It's taken a long time, but they're just nonchalant. There is no urgency here. They're walking it down the field 4 or 5 yards at a time. And I want to see the Bears do that, because to me, that'll say, oh, we got you.
I'm going to keep mine pretty simple. Can we reduce the lulls? There was a lull Sunday against the Browns, right? The Bears went 5 consecutive possessions and nearly 23 minutes of game time without adding to their point total. You can't do that this Saturday. Another no is how the Bears started the game, right? Duvernay gave them a great field position off the kickoff, and the Bears got 0 points after a 3 and out. You have to take advantage. You're on the other side of the 50, you're inside the 20, all of these things. You have to take advantage because there's only so many possessions in a game, right? On average, it's about 12 possessions in any given game. And if you don't get points on 3-4 of those, it's tough to win.
Yep.
Nick, what are you fixing?
Yeah, you're fixing how the Bears start the game. That
Nick, come back.
Looks like Nick froze in that one.
Yeah. At the same time, okay. Until he comes back, I'm gonna take a guess. I'll take a guess at what he was
going to say.
Because I know exactly. I heard what he was starting to say. The way that they started the game, and this has been a consistent theme for the Chicago Bears, is not starting fast, and it's been an issue for the last couple of years, just not being able to get those first drive points and really come out looking like, okay, yeah, we're setting the tone for this one, or it happens infrequently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So no, I'm assuming that's what Nick was about to say. But no, I'm with that, because look, in a game like this, especially you're at home, you got to set the tone here, man. And I know that it's going to be a weird situation where you're hurt, they're hurt. Actually, one of our guys in the chat was just like Vizzo Joe was like, this is going to be a game of who wants it more. Kind of is. I mean, what do you think? Because I think that's kind of what it is.
I would agree with that. I mean, in general, you can say, I mean, that's football. Like, a lot of these guys are very similar skill sets. And the difference between a good to a bad or a good to a great player is a matter of percentages, like percentage points. And when that happens, a lot of times it does come down to how bad do you just want to beat the person that's across from you? How bad do you want to dig out that routes? How bad do you want the concentration to make that catch? All these kinds of things. So
how bad do you want to block down the field? Like all of that. And so I think, the Bears badly wanted to come back in that game and make it competitive this last time. How bad do they want to come out from the jump and win?
So Nick's internet died, and he's not going to be able to come back in. So we'll end the show without Nicholas Moreano.
My guy, we love you, dude. Okay, real quick before we do this, you're going to do the combine this year?
I'm looking to do. I applied to do it this year, and I didn't get the credentials. So if I can get them, I'd love to go again.
Yeah, I would like to try to do it. Make our way down there and see if we can meet her, because I met Nick last year down there myself. How did you already get combine credentials or a combine application?
Well, I'm saying for last year I applied.
Oh, last year, yeah. I was gonna say, damn. But yeah, so yeah, if we can all make it happen, because yeah, the only 2 times I've been down at the combine, I met Nick down there. It was a good old time. Obviously met our guy, big old Brad Spielberger. All 6, 7 of them, and all that stuff. But yeah, let's get to the finish. Let's get to the finish.
That was a fun night. That was a really cool night.
Yeah.
All right. X factor for the Packers. Mine is for them is Nick just wants to throw out there Bears first in the NFL in scoring in the first quarter, 8.7 points per game. So just the last little bit from Nicholas Moreano. X factor for the Packers, create explosives in the passing game. The Bears have given up 60 plays of 20 yards or more, tied for the second most in the league with the Giants, trailing the Bengals staggering 71. The Browns added 2 to the Bears total Sunday when Shedeur Sanders found Isaiah Bond deep. So week 14 matchup with the Bears, the Packers had 5 explosive plays themselves, 3 of which went for touchdowns. So if there's a recipe for success for them, it's that.
I think it's going to be whether or not Christian Watson can catch the ball. Because if he can catch the ball and he can be productive in that realm, and if he can catch the ball with space, then he can run, because his legs were not on the injury report. So I think that, again, it's going to be a matter of, if he's on the field, you need to treat him like he's fully healthy and make him prove it.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's 100. I don't think he is, but as a player, I'm assuming he's 100% until he proves he's not 100%.
Yeah. Can I real quick do something non-Bears related, just because I happen to really like this player? Yeah. Jacoby Myers just got a 3-year, $60 million extension with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Basically, ever since he ended up over in Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence has been going off. And I feel like that's been something that And actually, like this might be something I want to see the Bears do down the line, not trade for Jacoby Myers, but get a receiver that just gets open, just by hook or by crook, just no matter what third down, he's gonna be open. I feel like people never really appreciated that about Jacoby Myers when he was in New England. I was watching him for 2 years covering that team. And that's a guy who just knows how to play football. And sometimes your quarterback just needs one of those.
And it's specifically getting open, but it's the getting open for the dirty catches and the dirty yards. It's a lot of the over the middle stuff that, if you remember the beginning of the year, a certain receiver on the Jaguars did not want to go over the middle and was poo-pooed for it. But I mean, Myers in the last 3 games, 6 receptions for 90 yards, 4 receptions for 39 yards, 5 receptions for 71 yards, and 2 touchdowns across those 3 games. So, sometimes, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and, you don't fit here, but you fit over there. And that's what happened between going from the Raiders to the Jaguars. So big props for Jacoby Myers.
Yes. I mean, and to that point, man, like, I don't know how many times I saw it. You kick his ass, he doesn't care. He's coming back for the next play. And it actually got so bad in New England, where he was just like cooking people on third downs. He was like the most targeted third down guy in the league at one point. And finally, the Buffalo Bills were just like, yeah, we're not going to allow, in the second game of the season 2021 with Mac Jones, they were like, we're not going to allow you to target Jacoby Myers. And that was the beginning of the end for Mac Jones in New England, because then they were making him throw outside the numbers instead of over the middle to Myers. And that's the thing. It's like sometimes you just underestimate the need for a guy like that. And I feel like, look, when you look at Rome Odunze, that's, your ex-receiver. He could be that guy, right? You can be your number 1 receiver, what have you. Luther Burden is going to be an excellent move him around guy, assuming DJ Moore is gone and those are your 2 top receivers. I want to see them get a guy that does the dirty work like that.
All right, moving on. We got 2 more categories here, then we're done for the night. X factor for the Bears. Mine, have to make Jordan Love uncomfortable. In their last matchup, Love picked apart the Bears when they played man. Love is second in the league in EPA per dropback with 0.22 and has 23 touchdowns versus just 6 interceptions. He's just too comfortable throwing those little fadeaway off his back foot bombs. He's very accurate. He can put it right on the money when you're doing that. So you have to not just get pressure, you have to get contact. You have to move the launch point so that he's and really force him to challenge that accuracy. You need to confuse him with the coverage. And you just can't give those open looks over the top. Like it was talked about earlier already in the show, but we don't expect it to be as crazy as it was last time, where Jalen Johnson is not deep enough, so Jaquan Brisker is having to run to the other half of the field to cover Christian Watson. And I don't expect that Dennis Allen is just going to say, "Hey, CJ Gardner-Johnson, let's guard Christian Watson one-on-one in the slot," and they just boom gone. So there's going to be adjustments, of course, but you really do have to make Jordan Love uncomfortable. What do you got?
Assuming DeAndre Swift plays, I want to see him continue to rock. I saw this stats breakdown by Kirsten Tannis, who does a lot of great stat stuff on Bears Twitter. She mentioned that in 2024, it was 3.79 yards per carry, negative 0.15. EPA per rush, success rate 33.99%. This is ugly stuff for DeAndre Swift. And this year, 4.9 yards per carry, positive 0.06 per rush, 48% success rate. Ben Johnson has figured out what works for DeAndre Swift, which you would expect because he's coached him before. And I think that, again, if you're talking about a running game that I think needs to dominate this game, not just in this game, but I think is going to be the key to whatever playoff run the Chicago Bears have, especially if the Chicago Bears did end up with a top 2 seed and they are hosting playoff games at Soldier Field, you are hoping that it's not necessarily going to be the balmy 40 degrees that it's going to be over in Chicago this weekend. But if it's colder, and you're going to make it be like, yo, you got to tackle this dude. You got to tackle Kyle Monangai. We're just going to go ahead and beat you up for 60 minutes. That's the kind of performance that I want to see. That's the kind of performance the Bears have been getting. And I really hope it's not the kind of play that the Bears are going to be missing this Saturday.
I like that. All right, let's wrap it up. We'll do our Bear gut check to finish it off here. Use our gut feelings, revitalized by kombucha, of course, to give our game predictions against the line. First up, the game we all care about, the one we're here to talk about, Packers at Bears. This is fantastic. The line moved, right? It was at -3 Packers to start, then, slid to -1.5. Now all of a sudden Bears are favored 1.5. Obviously, you have a little of that home field bump that's a part of it. So basically it's a push, which is pretty impressive. Who do you got? What is your final score for this game?
Give me the Bears and call it 24-21, because look, I think that Jordan Love will, continue to, have decent stats, decent game, but I think that it'll be a little bit different this time around. They'll have a chance to adjust and the injuries will catch up with them a little bit. And I think that in the end, Caleb Williams is going to pull some magic out of his hat, maybe a little bit with DJ Moore and Colston Loveland, but they're going to control the football. They're not going to let that Green Bay offense on the field as much as they had it the first time around. And they are going to score points. They're going to come away with a win, and they are going to stay atop the NFC North.
I'm going to also pick the Bears, and I'm going to pick them to win 30-24. Okay. I think there's going to be a little more offense in this game than people might think, just because you just talked about this. The weather is going to be better. It's going to be, like you said, it should be in like the 40s, so you're not really worried as much about some of the funky stuff there. Both of these defenses, people keep talking about the Packers, and by people I mean more than the national news and Packers Twitter, for being honest. And as I think being better than it really is, and then you just lost a very important piece of that defense. And then you even go to the Bears side. Yes, the Bears get turnovers, and yes, they're pretty good on third down, but they're pretty bad still on first down. They're pretty bad on second down. So I don't expect this to be a vaunted defensive matchup, hence why I picked that score. But with the emotional aspect of this, with the fact that the offense is playing better, with the fact that it seems like Caleb really has taken a step in terms of his development as a down the field passer, and in terms of what he's seeing and how he's reacting to various pressures, it would be hard for me not to say the Bears for this one. And you already talked about this too, and we talked about this all show. The run game, prove to me you can stop the run. They couldn't do it in the second half, and they didn't really do anything that much crazy. Like basically, as Ben Johnson said, we just played better. Like they hit their assignments better. We did the thing.
And you knew they were running the ball after a certain point, and you still couldn't stop it. Didn't matter.
Tonight's game, important implications for the Bears. Rams at Seahawks. Seahawks favored by 1.5. You talked about this earlier, Khari. Basically, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong if you know this, that we kind of want the Rams to lose this one, and for the Seahawks to win.
They're both up there in terms of the standings, but the Rams are the main competition right now for the number 1 seed. So I would say I would want the Seahawks to win this game, and the Bears to obviously win. Now, I think I have to check this out, but I think the Seahawks and Bears have the same record, but clearly the Bears have a tiebreaker. So if the Rams were to if the Rams were to lose this game, I would have to check this out. Somebody can correct me, but I would think that means the Bears would be the number 1 seed if they were to win.
Yeah, just something. If you go to The Athletic, has a fantastic playoff predictor, which is really cool. If you look at what they have there, they currently have a 29% chance the Seahawks, I should say, to have the number 1 seed. And if hit the wrong button. If the Seahawks were to win, that only goes up to about 53%, which is not all that high. Versus if you look at the Rams and they win this, it's basically 100%. Right. And that's just because of what the record is for the Seahawks versus the Rams. So, yeah, at this point, you do want the Seahawks to lose a couple games in the future. But this one, we're all Seahawks fans tonight.
And I think with that, right. So they get the Rams this week. They get Carolina, who is not a pushover. Go figure. Not a pushover this year at all. So that is not a given. And then you get the 49ers to close out. So I think that there are opportunities for the Seahawks to lose games here, but the Rams, I think if the Rams lose, then I think that from there on it's just in the Bears' hands. Just don't lose out, because then they've got the Falcons and the Cardinals, and they're probably going to win both those games.
Exactly, and the Rams are sitting at currently a 53% chance to 1 seed. And if they hit the right button here, if they won this game, it goes up to 90%. So there you go. All right, Bucks at Panthers. We just spoke about the Panthers, who, crazy enough, currently a relevant team and playing well to their credit. Bucks are favored by 3. I think I'm just gonna straight up say the Bucks. I just still think Baker is a better quarterback, even if he hasn't played as well the last couple weeks. But with the infusion of Mike Evans in there, I know they lost last week, but there's just something about this Bucs team that when push comes to shove, and when the season gets on the line, they figure out ways to win.
I think this is a closer one than you would expect because the Panthers have hung around much longer than you would expect. And here's the thing: if they win, then I think they go into a record-wise tie for the division. I got to check that out. But that is kind of insane when you think about what we've thought of the Panthers over the past couple of years. And I would absolutely agree, though. Baker is a better quarterback than Bryce Young, but whatever. Oh, they're tied right now. They're both 7-7. So then if the Panthers win this, then all of a sudden we're talking about them winning the division, which is hilarious because they're just playing tough, inspired football. They are one of those want it more teams. They run the ball really well and they just make plays. And they're defensively, they've got JC Horn who started to come into his own. And they're very opportunistic in a similar way to the Bears. That said, I think, look, the Bucs got gut checked against the Falcons last week. And I feel like they're going to come out with their backs against the wall in this one. And if they want to win this division, they better win this game. So I think that this is going to be a game that the Bucs find a way to figure it out and win.
There's something about also learning how to win. And obviously, like you just said, they're both tied. So it's not like that, but there's an undercurrent of situational winning. And we've seen the Bucs able to do that, even with, Baker at the helm. And we've seen, this coaching staff as a part of all that. So that wouldn't surprise me. All right, 2 more games here. Steelers at Lions. The Lions are favored by 7. As I mentioned earlier in the show, a loss by the Lions and a win by the Bears would lock up the playoffs for the Bears. What do you got?
I think Aaron Rodgers will find a way to give the Bears one last gift and beat up on the Detroit Lions. I think the Detroit Lions I think they're a good team. I do. I think that, they're better maybe than we expected without Ben Johnson. Dan Campbell, has done an admirable job in taking over the play calling. I don't think he's going to do that forever. And look, they've got the most explosive running back in the league in Jahmyr Gibbs and one of the most explosive receivers in Jamison Williams. But I think that for whatever reason, when it comes to playoff time, Mike Tomlin he has to deal with the devil. It's as simple as that. He's going to find a way to get that win, find a way to get himself into the playoffs. So I think that the contract with Satan requires that the Steelers find a way to win this game. Also, DK Metcalf's on my fantasy team, so come on.
That helps too. I'm going to go Oppo simply from the perspective that I don't think the Steelers are all that good.
They're not, but like I'm saying,
and the TJ Watt's out still after developing a pneumothorax from an unfortunate dry needling incident. And the Lions are still a talented team, although a flawed team for a variety of reasons that we won't get into because we'll talk about that in week 18 because we'll talk about the Lions game. When push comes, and also I can't possibly have too many good things happen for the Bears in a single weekend because that happened last weekend. So if I'm going to say Bears win, and I'll say Lions win just to keep the NFL fantasy gods on my side at this point. Last game, Monday Night Football, 49ers at Colts. 49ers are favored by 6. I brought this one up just because the 49ers still kind of have some relevancy for the Bears. They play the Bears next. That's obviously relevant. Also, the 49ers are chilling. They're 3rd in the NFC West at 10-4 behind the Rams and Seahawks, both at 11-3. So just keeping an eye on all those records are also very important, just potentially for final standings as well as you go in seeding for the playoffs. Who do you have in that matchup? Can Phillip Rivers work some magic and help the 8% chance Colts to make the playoffs?
Oh my God. Look, I just can't. I want to believe in, but I can't do it. I think San Francisco got to win that game, bro. No.
And even so it was kind of crazy, right? The Colts were as close as they were and almost won against the Seahawks. I still don't fully understand what happened in that game. but it was a
I think Sam Darnold was
case
playing like ass.
Yeah, it was
I
a
think that's
worst case scenario for the Seahawks. I mean, it was a low scoring game. I think Phillip Rivers was like 3 of 8 and an interception for 38 yards and passes more than like 10 air yards or something like that. It wasn't good. The 49ers, even though their defense is questionable, they have, a not 44-year-old quarterback.
For a 40-year-old quarterback who has been on the couch.
It was impressive. You got to give him credit, right?
120 yards and a touchdown and an interception. Honestly, that's pretty good. Which, an aside, not to go too far to the right, but I feel like that should say a lot to us about people be like, oh yeah, like, if I had done X, Y, Z, or like if I had gotten this, I could have been in the league. No, you couldn't. If somebody's just like, oh yeah, could you get 10 yards in an NFL game? I'll playfully be like, you know what? I'm probably decently fast enough to, get a couple yards in a game with a great offensive line. Honestly, no, I couldn't. I would die. But you know what? A guy who's 44 years old, who played at a high level in the league for 15 years, and then comes off the couch. Yeah, he knows a thing or two.
All right. That is the show that we have. Real quick, want to make sure I plug Nicholas Moreano, Nick, for popping on. He had something, like I said, internet, the power went down in his neighborhood, which is unfortunate. Bad timing. But go ahead, you check out his stuff. I mean, between what he's doing with Wash Marquee, obviously, if we're being completely honest, got kind of a bad rap with what happened with CHGO, and think he's one of the few guys on the Bears beat who are truly covering football, and like what he's doing with the players in the locker room with those POV videos and talking about specific plays from the previous game. It's just stuff that you're not getting anywhere else. So follow him on Twitter. Go ahead and watch his YouTube channel. And hey, if you love relationshipy stuff, even him and his fiance have a couples coverage podcast. I mean, he's got a little bit of everything, so go check him out. Khari, what are you doing nowadays? Anything people should be watching for you?
Well, I have, I'm obviously still writing for Windy City Gridiron. I also do a little bit of side work for Sports Illustrated, writing about the Bears. So, I'm staying abreast of the Chicago Bears and NFL coverage generally. But yeah, trying to also work on my own kind of personal podcast with a couple of friends of mine out here in Boston. But just look, staying in the sports talk realm, because look, in the end, like, what's more fun than that? I mean, look, you're over here doing the thing as as a physical therapist, as a doctor, as your day job, but you're coming out here wearing that goofy ass costume on a sports podcast. Like, what's more fun?
Nothing. That's it. All right, everyone. Hope you enjoy the podcast, whether you're listening to it tomorrow, maybe you're watching live. If you're watching live, thank you so much for watching live. Really appreciate that. You're spending your Thursday night with us. Keep an eye out. I believe I'll be doing a solo pod sometime around Christmas Eve or day. I'm not sure what. It won't be super long, but just something previewing that 49ers game. Just because I want y'all to have something. But enjoy the holiday season. Drink responsibly, act responsibly, enjoy your family time, and remember what the holidays are about. It's a good time. Bear down, everybody.
Hey, what has 2 thumbs and hates Todd Packer? This guy.